Hey, everybody. Welcome to another edition of Surf and Sales Podcast. I'm Scott Leese here with my friend Richard Harris. And we are talking today to, by far, the most prolific surfer that we've had yet on the podcast, Taylor Lobdell out of San Francisco. Taylor is a former state champion high school surf team. Welcome to the show, Taylor.
Good morning, Scott. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning. First of all, what school has a surf team? Scott, did your school have a surf? Well, you were in Chico. So
I'm landlocked. This guy grew up in Orange County, dude.
You guys had like a smoking team, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, we did. We did.
You were the state champion there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So not an individual state champion, but that was a team effort. It was Newport Harbor High School, in Newport Beach, California. So I was lucky enough to every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday go surfing for my first period in high school. And it was all 4 years I did that, and it was the best part of high school, hands down.
I love people who are listening. We've got this on video on YouTube and stuff like that. But Scott's sitting here like shaking his head, like, "You have got to be kidding me!"
Yep.
I needed. He's going to call his folks and go, "Mom and Dad, I can't believe we didn't do that."
Yeah.
I'm thinking, why don't I live in Orange County right now to give that experience to my kids? I'm feeling a horrible dad right now.
That's the dream.
Yep. That's awesome, man. So when did you start? Like, just out of curiosity, like, were you a kid surfer? Were you like, are your folks surfers? Like, or did you were the one who just sort of got the bug?
Yeah, I come from a family of ocean people, I would say. My dad was a Huntington Beach lifeguard. My uncles are big surfers, and I honestly don't remember the first time I surfed. It was probably when I was 5 years old, but I remember getting my first surfboard in the 4th grade. I went to this place called Play It Again Sports. And
we have that.
Yeah, went to the used surfboard rack. Got this like far too advanced surfboard for my liking. It was a Cordell. And I beat that thing up that summer. And then I got a custom board after that.
Nice.
Yeah.
Where have you surfed around the world? Because if you're that big of a surfer, you've probably done a lot.
Yeah, everywhere. So my home break was Newport Beach, but I've been to Mexico. I surf here out in Ocean Beach at least weekly. I've surfed Hawaii, Spain, all over, everywhere basically.
Have you done like Bali and all those places too?
I haven't done any Asian trips. No.
Okay.
Yeah, one day I will, or Australia.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
So, well, let's shift a little bit. Obviously, we can come back to this, and Scott, I think we should have. Jeff's going to be pissed. Jeff's our other co-founder of Surf and Sales, who surfs once a week, and we'll get the two of you connected because he goes to Ocean Beach.
Yeah.
Probably once a week, Scott, maybe.
Yeah, Ocean Beach once a week. He certainly surfs more than once a week. The last time I know he was at Ocean Beach, he snapped his board in half.
That's true. He did.
Yeah. I snapped my leg in half at Ocean Beach two winters ago. So I that's a story we can get into as well, but that's a mean wave.
We'll hook you up with Jeff and Matt.
Yeah.
Talk to us about some of the parallels of surfing and sales.
Yeah. So I think that surfing and sales, it's one thing I was thinking about before coming on here was just how you get good at it. And just like you get good at everything is practice. When you drive down to the beach and you see the waves and they are not good and you do not want to go out, or maybe it's a little bit too big for your liking, but you force yourself out there, that's when you actually get better. Just like in sales, when maybe the leads are not that great or the product you're selling is a little rough. Those are the times that you actually get better. So it's really focusing on the day-to-day activities, like just even paddling out or making that extra phone call, where that's where you get good. So when the waves get triple overhead, or I can't surf those waves, but overhead and pumping, just like when the leads are flowing, then you'll be ready to actually hit it and be successful.
So tell me more about what you said was if the product is rough, I think is the word that you used.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people would think like, well, there's no way to get good at selling if the product is not superior. And you sort of said the opposite of that. So talk to us a little bit more about that. What's the opportunity for people to improve their salesmanship if the product is less than superior?
Yeah, I would say it's all about focusing on what the customer really their challenge, so you can actually listen to them. And if you're just all focused on the product that you're selling, that's when you just get too focused on it. So you have to focus on your customer, and so that you can say, hey, you know what, maybe this is not the right product for you, and let them go. Or you say, you know what, this is what we actually have today, and I think it is perfect for you. So it's really about listening to your customer and what they need.
And what is the market and the type of sale that you're in now? Give everybody some context, in terms of where you're coming from.
Yeah, so I'm in new business sales now for a account-based platform called RollWorks. They're part of NextRoll, which was formerly the AdRoll group. So it's in the digital marketing space.
Yeah, very familiar with AdRoll. I'm sure Richard is.
Yep.
As well.
Yeah, it's a great company. Great company to work for.
They've done really well. I know Scott. Who what's her name was there, wasn't she?
Well, Jean Marie, JM.
Yeah, Jean Marie. Yeah. She was there for a while.
Yeah, actually, Jeff is good friends with the founder of AdRoll. Fun fact, Richard.
Oh, cool. Yeah. So
Yeah.
So Taylor, where did you sort of realize you liked sales? Like, where did that come from in your life?
Yeah. So I went to Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, where I was also on the surf team there. And
another one you missed. Yeah. There you go, buddy.
I know Scott's fuming right now.
He totally.
Time to redo my life.
So there I when did I realize I love sales? So I don't know if I worked at a surf camp growing up from the time I was 15 to about 25. And I was 25, I was working at a restaurant, I was working valet, I was about 23, but I was working valet, restaurant, and then a surf camp job in the summers, and then traveling all the time. So I was kind of barely employed, but definitely making some money. And then I was like, you know what, I have to use my degree and get some health insurance. So I loved the idea of solar and solar energy. And I studied that at Cal Poly. So I started looking for companies that do solar in not a technical way. So I saw a job posting for an SDR, and I'm like, what is that? And it said not a lot of experience needed. You just need to be able to make a bunch of phone calls. And I'm like, I can do that. So I became an SDR at a company called Sungevity, selling residential solar systems. And I kind of crushed it right out of the gate. I wasn't afraid to talk to people. I listened to people, what they need. And I really did love solar. So it was a good fit. And I rose quickly from an SDR to an SDR lead to an account executive.
What do you attribute your early success to? Most people, myself included, like, I don't know. I felt like it took me a little while to get going. I guess if I look back, I wasn't actually an AE and a seller for that long. Like, what do you attribute your early success to? I'm curious.
For me, maybe this is a fault of mine, but I always have a really good attitude about whatever I'm doing. So if somebody's tasked me, we used to call it the Century Club, to make 100 phone calls a day, I would gamify it and get people involved and send out email chains with scoreboards and leaderboards. So kind of making everything a competition and having fun with it, not saying, oh my gosh, I'm going to just leave 100 fake quick voicemails to get through this day, to actually get some fun into it.
I have a question. I want to go back to your surfing, particularly on the coaching side or working at a surf camp, because I think I see a parallel, and I'm just curious. When you're working and teaching someone how to surf, right? How do you feel like that correlates to sort of this SDR role, right? Or to a sales role? Because I see a correlation. I'm just curious, like, when you're teaching someone how to surf, like, you can't just sort of throw up all over them.
Nope.
Right?
Nope.
So what's that like? What's the parallel? Like, if you've got a brand new surfer, like, what are you trying to break down for them so we can put that in sales context?
Yeah. So, I mean, the most obvious and maybe cheesy answer is that the waves just always are coming at you, just like the leads and the next phone calls. So you have to be ready, and it's really how you position yourself. So the first thing that I do when I teach somebody to surf is spend a good 15 minutes at least on the beach, just watching the waves and looking at them and kind of aligning your surf spot. And then the next thing I show them is just how to hold your board while you're getting out into the waves. Because if your board is anywhere but straight into the waves, you're going to get pushed back. And if your board and if the wave is coming at you and your board's here, you're going to get smacked by your board. So even with an SDR, it's like if you're not coming in with the same framework every time, then you're going to have problems.
That's I can tell you, teaching somebody how to surf is equally as painful as teaching somebody how to sell.
Yeah. It's
the amount of patience required is.
That's the part I was going to get to. Where did that patience come in? Like, how do you talk about that patience when you've got someone? Like, let's face it, I'm not the world's. I'm still learning consistently, as Scott will tell you. You've got the person who's doing it 4, 5, 6 times. They're trying, but they're not quite doing it. How do you, right? Like, what advice would you give to other leaders and managers to maintain their patience, to keep that level of, hey, keep working with this person?
Yeah, I would say set yourself up or set your sellers up for success, where maybe don't throw an SDR on the tier 1 leads right away. Maybe say, hey, go mess around with the lower tier leads, and anything you can do is a win. Just like in surfing, like if I'm teaching somebody to surf and they ride a wave for a second and on their belly and fall off and get water up their nose, that's still a fun experience. It's not like you messed up our best customer and you're on a pip and
it's a lot less pressure.
Yeah, less pressure. Exactly.
Yeah.
How big of a team are you managing right now?
So I'm an IC here. I'm an individual contributor. Yeah.
Got it. Do you miss being in a leadership role, or are you like, no, I'm pretty cool being, because I know people who go back and forth, right?
Yep.
Do you like the IC? Do you want to work back into management? Not that there's a right or wrong answer, but what works for you? What works for Taylor?
Yeah, I really like being an IC today. As I said to you guys before, I have a newborn baby.
Yeah. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah. 4 months old, baby June. She's perfect. So I feel like taking care of her is all I can really take care of right now. And then my quota, I can't really manage a team right now, but in the future, I would love to manage.
I have no sympathy for Taylor right now.
Why, Scott? Why?
I was a VP of sales when I had my first son, and I was a VP of sales when I had my second son. So I'm just like,
yeah, that's not an excuse.
What has changed for you in your sales approach and style in the last 5 or 6 years that you've been in this inside sales corporate kind of selling world?
Yeah. What has changed? That's a good question. It's really, there seems to be now a lot more technologies to help you sell, which can be a crutch, but it can also be very helpful. When I started, it sounds like it's forever ago, but it was only like 6 years ago, was you basically had Salesforce, maybe something to help you dial, and a list of leads. Now there's everything from, you can get your account scored, you can get just a ton more marketing help, and just the tools have really changed. And that's kind of the one thing that I've seen. How do you
avoid tool fatigue, right? As an IC, right? Because you're right. Like, there's so much out there, right?
Yep.
I assume, you're not doing the Century Club, 100 dials a day. No. You don't promote that in most cases. How do you manage the tool fatigue for a rep so they don't get stuck down the rabbit hole of over preparation just to make a freaking phone call?
Yeah, no, it's completely true. I think it's having a framework early in the day or early in the month or early in the quarter or the year to say, hey, this is going to be my strategy, and I'm not going to change it until I've seen some results, or I know I need to change it. Because
what's your framework? What's yours?
My framework is to really nail down a target account list so I can be really, really kind of motivated to go after just those accounts and put all my energy into those. And anything I get inbound and anything I get from SDRs is just icing on the cake, but really be in charge of those. I have 150 target account list right now that I know every single company, I know every single leader and decision maker. So that's how I focus on them.
I'm going to keep getting granular on this because I think this is we haven't dove into ICs very much on this podcast. So I want to give advice. Let's go back to January 1st or December, whatever, the end of the month.
Yep.
You've got this list of 150. What did you do the first, if you look at the list of 150, how many contacts are at each company?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing the beginning of January? What are you shifting to the middle of January?
Mm-hmm.
Why are you on a podcast on January 31st? No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, I got to get back to work. So what I do is I am basically taking the lowest, like maybe 30 of those accounts and constantly rotating them out. So basically all of January I've been prospecting, really dialing in that 150 target accounts. And then I go into Salesforce. I use a tool called Prospect and then Outreach as well to start doing outreach to them. And then I hit them all with LinkedIn touches. So I'm kind of transitioning now into the outreach portion, but it's mainly right now just dialing in that target account list.
So what do you mean? So dialing in on the target account, what does that mean?
Yep.
For you?
So basically we have an ICP of, let's say, 100 to 500 employees. They have a certain amount of technologies they're using. So that's an ideal customer. And there might be some kind of on the fringes that I'm looking at and I'm saying, maybe this is worth a LinkedIn note, but otherwise I'm getting them off my target account list and bringing on somebody that I find that is more defined in our ICP.
So are you saying that all of January you're refining the list, or are you also doing the prospecting too?
I'm mostly refining the list. I'd say that was the first 2 weeks, but we also had SCO. So it's just been kind of crazy here. So I've been refining the list. I've been doing outreach, and then I've been just doing more trainings for the year as well.
Got it. And when you put together your sequence in outreach, how many touches are you running as you start to move into prospecting in February?
Yeah, so right now I'm doing like a 6 to 8 touch sequence, but those are for the lower tiered accounts, and I'm doing 1-to-1 personalized messaging for the top tier accounts.
Got it. And if you're doing 6 to 8 over what time frame?
About 3 months.
3 months. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. And of those 6 to 8, how many are phone calls? How many are LinkedIn? How many are email? Are they kind of evenly dispersed? How do you do it?
So what I usually do is I start with a LinkedIn message and then I hit them with an outreach sequence, and I'll usually let that run for 2 emails, and then I'll give them a call and I'll say, hey, I sent you a LinkedIn, I emailed you a couple times, so they're at least genuinely aware of our company. So I have something to reference, not just, hey, I'm calling you out of the blue.
So you're not asking for the meeting in the first 3 touches.
Yeah, well, I am.
You are, okay.
Yes. Who's your buyer though? What's the persona? Is it a VP of sales? Is it a CEO? Who is it?
It's a marketing team. So it's either a CMO or a director of marketing, sometimes a marketing manager.
So do you find that most of your decision makers, most of the CMOs, they're active and responsive on LinkedIn? You get a good hit rate from that approach?
It's so multi-pronged, and it's a little bit, I would say.
Does it surprise you that in 2020 that somebody could be running a marketing team and not be responsive on LinkedIn? Surprises me.
It does. It really does. Yeah, it does. But people are trying to help each other out on LinkedIn, and if you're coming in and trying to add some value, and not coming off just like a salesman, just for a quick chat, people are generally open to that.
Gotcha.
Got it. What have you learned in the last few years, maybe in the last year, right? Because you had a big life transition, right? You had a baby daughter, June, right?
Yes.
Right. And she's standing on the surfboard, I presume?
I got a picture of her at Fort Point standing on my surfboard after a surf session. So
Sweet.
Not in the water, but yes.
That should be your LinkedIn profile pic.
I know it should.
What have you learned, and let me back up. When you came on to where you are now, were you a manager moving into an IC role, or had you been an IC for a while?
I'd been an IC for a while.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's something you've learned new since getting into this level of an IC role? With this is a great company you're working for, so I give mad props to them. What's something new that you could give advice you could give to somebody around this that you've learned in the last year?
Yeah, I think that something I struggled with as I moved up market in my IC career is knowing how many decision makers are involved in a decision. So sometimes you have great rapport with your first contact. They even tell you that they're the decision maker. And at the end of maybe have 3 phone calls with them, and then they go, you know what, I have to run this by my CMO or my CEO, or I can't get anything done without my CFO signing off on. I'm like, wait, that was just me and you. So that's what I've learned to navigate.
The hidden, it's the old I'm the decision maker. I have all the authority.
Yeah, right. And you kind of feel bad pushing back on that because you don't want to sound like, are you sure? Are you like it's so that's a difficult thing for I think every seller to manage.
How do you do it now? So now this is probably coming, right? You've learned, you've watched the waves come in. You now know your step, your break, right? Yeah. So now what do you try to do earlier in the conversation in that first or second call to try and vet out that piece without actually offending them, right? Because I understand that piece too. Have you figured out a way to sort of ask that question?
Yeah, something I've been trying to varying degrees of success is to say, hey, you know what, my team can't get anything signed without our CFO's approval. Is there anything like that within your company?
Right.
So it's not like, hey, are you really the boss? Mm-hmm. It's something like, hey, this is what we do. Is this something you do too?
Yeah. So I'll give you a couple of tips.
I'd love some.
So one is just say, how does your organization make these kinds of decisions? Yep. Right. You can also say, a lot of times I talk to people and they're the decision maker to decide to use it, but oftentimes it's got to go through a process internally. I don't want to use the word approval, right?
Right.
There's a process. Is there something about the process I can help you with? Right. So that now you're sort of, you're making the process this third party entity that doesn't have emotion to you or them.
Right.
You can ask about that. My other favorite question to encourage people to ask is, who else is affected by this decision? Not involved, but affected, because everybody's affected by it, right?
Right.
And then that way you can sort of get a sense of it. So I don't know, Scott, what have you taught people on this one? It's a good topic.
I like being a little bit more direct and saying like who else is going to be excited by this decision.
I like that. That's a great question though.
Of this, right? Or the opposite is anybody going to be like negatively impacted? Can you think of anybody in the organization that might not like this for some reason? Most of the time, 90% of the time, they say no, not really. And when you ask the question about who else in the organization is going to be excited about this change, they inevitably have one or two people, and then they kind of light up about it a little bit. But that is also a way to flush out what other characters might be involved that they're trying to pretend might not have to be a part of the decision-making process.
I like that. I like that word excited because it does send an emotion to them that they have to respond to.
Yeah.
Right. That's really smart. I like that one.
Yeah, I'm gonna try that. That's a good one.
Yeah.
So you spent a lot of time coaching others outside of sales.
Yep.
What are the ways that you learn and grow and want to be coached and developed now in your career?
Yeah, it's a good question. I like to be coached by, first of all, like kind of the persona I like to be coached by is somebody who's obviously been in the trenches and done it before. And does
it matter at all to you how recently they've been in the trenches?
Not too much. It doesn't really matter to me. We have older people in our management that haven't been in IC for a while, and I think that their lessons are just as valid as somebody who might have just been promoted as a manager.
Be careful when you throw around that word older.
Yeah. more experienced. How about that?
There you go. Veterans, right?
Veterans.
Yeah.
Yes.
What kind of training? What delivery mechanism? Like,
yeah.
Do you like getting trained in group settings, more one-on-one? Are you cool with guided learnings or what?
Yeah, I really like, so when I started here, my first couple of phone calls, I would get through as much as I could. And then when my product knowledge stopped, I would actually have my manager on the call, and he would kind of take it over from there. So it's kind of like you're learning to ski with somebody kind of holding you on the back. So that's kind of what I like. So instead of just doing mock pitches, which I would love to hear your guys' opinion on mock pitches, but they're always seem to be awkward to me and never really, I don't learn too much from them. But I like getting on the phone call with a customer and seeing how my manager or leader is doing their pitch.
Perhaps you can get away from the thought of a mock call and more scenario.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think that there's a lot to learn from that back and forth. So I might say to you, hey, Taylor, okay, I need to hear your response when somebody says, everything looks great. Get back to me in Q2. This is like a Q2, decision.
Right.
And then I want to hear you deliver your response to that.
Yep.
And then I'm going to say, okay, now you ask me that question. And I give you my reply, right? So yep. I think it eliminates some of the awkwardness.
Yeah.
Because it condenses it, right? It keeps it in like a short period of time and a back and forth where somebody is able to be like, oh, okay, I heard a difference there. I can apply that. I don't have to pay attention and keep this facade going for 20, 30 minutes of a whole mock call.
Yeah. Right. And then it's also repeatable. You can say, okay, try it again, do it again, rather than a 45-minute or an hour pitch where you kind of don't even remember what you said in the first 10 minutes and you're getting notes on it. So I like that.
I can remember sitting and working with a sales rep of mine. This is maybe 5-6 years ago now. And they were just really struggling with the tone that I wanted them to find in their opener. And I'm not kidding. I literally made them re-say the opening, couple sentences like 30, 40, 50 times in a row.
Yep.
Over and over and over again. Like, nope. God, nope. All right. Closer. Yep. That was a little better. Right. And just over and over and over. Just a very, very, singular thing that I was trying to fix. So maybe try to think of it more that way. Like break it down into little tiny segments and pieces that you can work on. Don't work on a whole entire mock pitch. That might be something to think about.
Yeah, the mock pitch is the final piece, right? Like I think you role play different scenarios, right? You role play this strategy, this technique, this verbiage, and you role play this one, 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 and then maybe on Friday you do the whole thing. But even then, the coaching should be around those pieces. There is value for doing a mock pitch to see how you pitch, right? That's different, right? Like, how do I do the demo is a different part of the pitch, and how you manage that is very different than how do I handle these little one-off moments so that I can sound intelligent, right? Like the questions we were giving you about how to make a decision, right? We gave you like 6 things that, normally Scott and I would sit back and just drill you. Try that one, do it over and over and over again. So I think that's really where that piece is.
Yeah.
What have been some of your less than stellar performances? Let's talk about some failures. We all have them. We all have our setbacks, whatever you want to call them. Where
biggest sales wipeout? Yeah,
there you go.
Good question. I would say I got let go from a job, my first AE role ever. And
did you deserve to be let go?
I want to say no. The company went bankrupt after like maybe a year after I got let go. So it was kind of on a downward trend, but I didn't make myself indisposable. So that was definitely a wipeout. And I might have got promoted from an SDR too quickly. But yeah, I have gotten let go before.
So what is that, to talk about that for a second? You got promoted. It's not, sometimes it's too quick, sometimes it's not.
Yep.
Look back on it. What were the mistakes you made moving from the SDR to the AE role that you could share with others? So, because there's tons of SDRs who want to get promoted, which is great.
Yep.
Like everybody's all for it, but
yep.
How do you sort of say, slow your roll, buddy?
Yeah. Totally. I would just be very open with your manager about realistic expectations right out of the gate for the role. So even after the first week, if you're falling behind, you can say, hey, Monday morning, we got to get together and make something change, rather than waiting for 2 quarters down the line and you're missing your numbers and then you get axed. So make sure there's constant, and that should be on your manager too, but you got to kind of raise your hand and make yourself heard.
How are you evaluating opportunities these days? So one could make the case that perhaps that particular company, wasn't the best, didn't have the best long-term outlook, right? And maybe Taylor from today would never have even taken that job because you know certain questions to ask now that you didn't then. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, my recommendation to anybody is really check in on the interview process. If they seem like they're just desperate to hire and they just got funding and they're going to take anybody, it's that can be a really great job. That can be, you get at the ground level of a really good company, but can also be something that just flames out in a year, which has also happened to me. So one of the reasons why I picked at the time, which was called AdRoll, was because they've been around for over 10 years and the leadership was really good as well. So that is something, as I get more experience, I'm looking into the interview process.
Go ahead, Richard.
No, go ahead, Scott.
I was going to ask, what are the different challenges in selling at an early stage startup versus a large, more established organization for you?
Well, it's one is just name recognition is huge.
You just call people up and you're like, hey, I'm with AdRoll. Boom, they just say yes.
Where do I sign? Name recognition is huge. But if you are in a startup, you do have I would say you do have a good opportunity to kind of unseat some tech by just saying, hey, I know that you're using X company now. We're doing something differently. And some people are not happy. So they're like, hey, yeah, let's at least entertain a phone call. So it's your way in.
What kind of leader brings out the best in you, right? When you are interviewing and you're looking for a sales leader or leadership, a leadership culture, what kind of boss brings out the best in Taylor?
Yeah, I would say a kind of a positive one that has a good vision, and I can imagine having a beer with him or her after work. It's because you spend more time here than really with your family, so it's like you gotta be with them in the trenches all the time. So not only to see their success and kind of check all the standard boxes, but to see if you can hang out with them for 8 to 10 hours.
What about from a coaching perspective, right? Like what kind of coaching brings out the best in you? Do you want weekly one-on-ones? Do you want, chorus or gong recorded calls and, you want to sit down and do a call? Like what kind of things like that work for you?
Yeah, I'm fairly, I like fairly hands-on coaching at the start, and then give me the reins to eat it a couple times and wipe out a couple times,
right? And
get my own kind of rhythm going, and then go back for weekly one-on-ones. Chorus is a plug I'll give out. I use it, and I'm kind of listening to chorus calls all day while I'm prospecting or doing whatever, just to kind of get the rhythm of the calls in my head and see what other people are doing as well. So I really do like chorus.
That's really good. I had another question for you around that. What kind of leader brings out the worst in you?
I haven't luckily had too many bad bosses or even mediocre managers. So it's kind of hard to answer that question. I also get along with just about everybody. Right. So even if people are like, hey, I mean, there's always chatter on the sales floor about leadership. Sorry to tell you guys that, but yeah, it's
well aware.
Yeah. So I don't like to go towards that negative energy. I'd rather have a conversation with them and not kind of get sucked down by that negative energy.
Well, that takes you back to your 4 years old surfing, right? You just learned how to chill early.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
So,
yep.
And being a parent, you're just like,
I don't have time for it.
There's so much more important stuff than this, right?
I don't have time for it. Exactly. Right. Yep.
How do you, let me ask you this, because there's always, look, and some of it's valid, there's always chatter on the floor. How do you, and almost every sales floor has a negative person, right? Everything's always wrong. It's always the company's fault. So one thing you can do, right, is ignore it. What are other things that you've ever done in your past, aside from sort of, moving away from it? Have you ever tried to coach them peer to peer on something like that? Just, again, trying to give some advice to other folks who may be experiencing that.
Yeah, I would say sometimes those people just want to be listened to. They just want to vent, and I think it's healthy sometimes. So even if you just want to lend an ear and not stoke the fire and stoke that negativity, but just say, hey, yeah, like what is going on? Like, why are you having a tough time? Just be empathetic and just hear them out, and then maybe like, whoa, like sometimes I've had a bad day and I just need to just vent to somebody. So just be there for your fellow salespeople.
Yep. How do you? Maybe you've never had one, but have you ever had a sales slump?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So
oh yeah.
How'd you pull yourself out?
Best tip for breaking out of the sales slump?
Yeah.
Best tip. Stick to the process that the people on your team are doing, and really get tips from the higher performers.
You mean go back to the process, because if you're in a slump, you probably deviated from it, right?
Yeah, exactly. See what's working, and don't be afraid to ask for help. If you are asking for help from somebody on your team or your manager, and just know the next sale is coming. You're not gonna goose egg for months on end.
That's good.
Yep.
Well, we're sort of getting to the end. One of the things we always like to turn around is sort of, flip it a little bit, is what can we do for you? Like, how can we help you in your career, in your sales gig, in life? Like, what can we do to give you some karma back?
Yeah, I would say, one, if you know anybody, I do private surf lessons in the Bay Area. So if you know anybody who wants to surf early in the mornings or on the weekends, I'm your guy. So if you know anybody
do you work with?
Here there's not too many kids in San Francisco, but I've taught everybody from ages 4 to 80 years old. I've teach everybody.
That could be my kids. My boys do surf, but I wouldn't mind putting them in a lesson, right?
Yeah.
Here's an interesting question.
Don't take them to Ocean Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Here's a question for you. As you surf, right? Do you still take surf lessons?
I don't, no, but I am watching surf videos all the time. Not normally at work, but
I look at work. I know you're doing your fantasy football. I get it, right? Like,
yeah, exactly. So I'm studying surfing all the time, and I'm reading about it, and so I'm taking it in all the time.
And when you watch them, are you looking at technique? Are you looking at foot movement and weight and balance and those kinds of things? Like, are you really deciphering
all the time. And sometimes I'll look at a surfer and I'll see that maybe his bottom turn is something I want to try to emulate. So I'll go out and just focus on my bottom turns for the whole session.
Right. And so that obviously correlates to sales, right? Like, that's complete, which actually goes back to your pitch comment. Hey, don't worry about riding the whole thing. Don't worry about the whole pitch. Focus on the bottom turn, right? That goes back to that comment there.
Totally.
So
I guess another question for you. My goal is to move up. I'm at mid-market right now. My goal is to move up one day to enterprise sales. So how do you best navigate kind of that, going from mid-market to to enterprise and any challenges there?
Well, the first thing you got to make sure you do is be really, really good at your job today.
Yep.
Don't think that just by focusing on being an enterprise rep, it's magically going to appear. You better nail the role that you're in.
Right.
And then start to demonstrate that you have the capacity to understand the increasing complexity involved with larger deals.
Right.
Try to tag along and be supportive potentially of other people who are working on deals. Comp free, by the way, just to learn and help and contribute. I certainly think that at some point you will want to express the desire to move up, so it becomes on leadership's radar. And at some point in time, if you've done really well and you've done all the things that you feel like you would need to do in order to move up, if that opportunity does not exist at your current organization, you've got to, in my opinion, be willing to take a risk and bet on yourself and look outside and find another role and bet on yourself, like I like to say, and take a chance and go that route. What about you, Richard?
Yeah, I think I mean, that's the benefit of a course and Gong, right? Is you could go listen to some enterprise deals.
Right.
I also think you want to, for lack of a better phrase, interview enterprise reps, whether they're at your company or outside. Like, you could probably LinkedIn some enterprise rep at Oracle or whatever and just say, hey, I'd like to interview you. You don't know me. I'm in this level. I'm trying to learn more about enterprise. And I just want to get different opinions, right? I just want to hear from different people. So sort of go into it in this interview process, which could eventually lead to a mentoring role, but it's not quite as heavy an ask, right? For that other person. And for me, when you say, hey, I want to interview you, it stokes their ego in a really fun way that, oh, wow, this person thinks I'm smart, right?
Right.
I also think that particularly at a company you're at, I'm hoping they have a career pathing map already there, that if you want to go into this role, these are our expectations beforehand, right? You got to hit your numbers. You got to do this. As you said, you have some elder statesmen in the organization in the sales role, in the leadership role. I would even say, hey, I want to interview you about this. Yeah. And then it becomes, wow, okay, this person's interviewing me. They're not asking me to teach them something. You know what I mean? Like, it just changes the dynamic of that conversation just in that one word. So by using that word interview, it makes the other person the expert, which they should be, which I'm happy for. The last thing I would say is, don't take that stupid bullshit of, well, I don't know, you just kind of got to do it and blah, 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 blah. Like, if that person can't answer that question, then they're not the right person to talk to. Right. And that's fair. Like, that's okay. Maybe they can't articulate it and it's not in their mindset to not in a negative way, not want to articulate it, but it's just not their way of doing it. So I think you got to sort of ask from that perspective. Right.
Right.
And I think the last thing is, as you go to the elder statesman in your organization, say, hey, if I want to move into enterprise, who should I be paying attention to? Who should I be talking to? Right.
Yeah.
At this company or another company, because they're all going to know somebody. Right. Yeah. And again, you're sort of saying, hey, I just want to keep learning. Right.
Right.
That's how I would do it.
Great. Thank you, guys.
Yeah. Our pleasure, man.
Some time with us, Taylor. Hopefully.
I guess I have one other plug. If you wouldn't mind, if anybody's in San Francisco and looking for a volunteer opportunity, the City Surf Project is a nonprofit that takes kids from the inner city and teaches them how to surf. And they're always looking for volunteers, and they have fundraising events throughout the year. So it's something to check out. Johnny Irwin runs it, and he's a great dude. And they're always looking for volunteers.
What City Surf Project? Is that what it's called?
City Surf Project.
And is that their website, citysurfproject.com, or?
I'm guessing it is. I'm guessing it is. Yeah.
Great.
One of our buddies and previous guests on Surf and Sales podcast, Henry Frazier, is a participant in that.
Oh, cool. Sweet.
I'll just try to connect you guys after
that. Yeah, you should. Definitely.
All right, Taylor. Thanks for spending some time with us today, man.
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Scott and Richard. Have a good one.
You too.
All right.